This is our webinar, the Polystyrene Association's webinar regarding the EPR regulations, which have been enacted and which we now have. The whole industry obviously has a lot to do and a lot of work to do. So we really welcome this opportunity to speak to you today. As I said, all the participants, your microphones have been muted, your videos are also turned off. You can turn them on if you want to, but we want to try and rather keep them off for this session. We are expecting around 120 attendees, but I think we're around 60 at the moment. Please keep in mind that the adherence to the Competitions Act in this meeting, so that we all just adhere to those regulations. Also, we are recording the meeting, and the meeting recording will be shared with you, as will the slides of both the presentations. I'd like to welcome Nombulelo Manyana, who is the editor of Resource magazine, and she will be our moderator for today. Nombulelo, I don't know if you just want to show us where you are and just say hello.
Hi, everyone. As Audrey has said, I'm Nombulelo, and I will be the moderator for the Q&A session, and I look forward to getting all your questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Nombulelo. So what will happen with questions is we will be doing the two presentations, after which we will take a Q&A, questions and answers. But please type your questions in the chat box and who you would like to direct this question to. Nombulelo will then go through those questions. We'll try and get to as many as possible. We're going to try and really stay to our time limit. And then if your question does not get answered today, we will reply to you in writing, just so that you do get a reply. I would like to briefly welcome our board, the Polystyrene Association's board members, who is Mr. Neelan Naidu from Impact Plastics. He's the chairman, and then Anton Maingard from Strand Group is our vice chairman, Mr. Jaco du Plessis from Ciberpac, and Etienne Pretorius from PolyOak. Then, without further ado, I'd really would like to thank Mr. Anben Pillay, who's the Director of Waste Policy Information Management from the Department of Forestry and Fisheries. He is and has been a very hard worker on this legislation, and we really appreciate the time that he's willing to give to us today. I will stop sharing my screen for 1 minute. Anben, if you wouldn't mind just unmuting yourself and showing your video. I'm just looking for you there you go, so that people can at least put a face to your name. And then, did you unmute now? Did it work? Yes.
Hi, good day, everybody.
Thank you, we can hear you. Thank you. And Mr. Pillay is unfortunately traveling for work. Well, not unfortunately, he's doing all the whole hard work behind the scenes. So he's traveling today. So thank you for even joining us from the car. That takes a lot of dedication. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen now with a presentation from Mr. Pillay, and he will go through his presentation on the regulations and some highlights and points that we would like to share with you. I just want to find my view. There you go. Close that screen. Save, there you go. And then we can do this presentation. Sorry, don't know where my view went. Single page. Oh goodness. Okay. And I'm sorry, it seems like I've lost my capability of showing my screen in the right format, but I think everybody can see the screen, and I'll just continue like this. Hello, are you still on mute now? Okay, I'm going to do that now. Bye. Okay, there you go.
Okay, good afternoon, colleagues. I trust I am audible right now.
Yes, you are. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you for the opportunity for us to come and present to this particular forum that has been arranged by the Polystyrene Association. As a department, we take advantage of these opportunities, and as civil servants, we say thank you for allowing us this privilege to engage with the other stakeholders. So yeah, we are busy with the extended producer responsibility regulations and notices. So yeah, I'm here to answer all your questions. Hopefully they're not too difficult. But yeah, Audrey, you can proceed. The next slide, please. Okay, colleagues, we embarked on a process in terms of the National Environmental Management Act, which is Section 28 in 2015. The Section 28 process was basically what we refer to as the industry waste management plans. And these come from the legislation, and it's basically a process that was going to be run by government. Government would collect a levy, and government would take care of the waste streams emanated from the affected sectors. And after a whole lot of work that was done, this process was eventually withdrawn on the 13th of December 2019, wherein the minister had a meeting with industry representatives. And when she had this meeting, there was a huge sway in the direction of moving towards Section 18 of the National Environmental Management Waste Act. And Section 18, as you by now already know, it refers to the extended producer responsibility process. So the officials initiated the process in early January 2020. Next slide, please. And we held two workshops in the 11th and 12th of February 2020, where we convened the paper and packaging sector, the lighting sector, and the electrical and electronic equipment sector. Now, these workshops were attended by representatives from existing EPR schemes, from producers, and from other associations that are currently operating in our country. And during this workshop, what we did, we basically outlined a process that we would follow in trying to implement Section 18 of the Act. And thus far, we managed to do it in the limited time frame that we had. If you consider what COVID-19 did in 2020, we were still successful in getting through the piece of legislation. But yeah, despite the lockdown regulations, we were still able to have virtual engagements and consultations countrywide to enable us to finalize the piece of legislation. Now, the regulations, as I said, we were still engaging via email, via MS Teams, via Zoom. We used all the different platforms that were available to us to actually draft this piece of legislation. Next slide, please, Audrey. And yeah, that was by way of where we had come from. Now, we had published a first round of regulations or draft regulations in June, on the 26th of June, for public comments. And the law provides for us to allow 30 days for comments. And I think with this particular legislation, there was a huge outcry. Why only 30 days? So we eventually published an extension until August. So it was almost 60 days that were given. And after going through the consultations and the inputs that we received, we published the final regulations on the 5th of November. Now, once we had published these regulations, we as a department also, we have acknowledged together with industry that this being the first iteration of EPR in South Africa, there will be gaps that will be identified. There will be challenges that we would not have seen. There would have been issues or challenges that we did not foresee, or unforeseen circumstances or implementation challenges, we understood that we may find ourselves in that situation. And upon publishing on the 5th of November, our attention was drawn to the fact that there were challenges, and several of the industry associations, private industries, wrote to the minister making submissions that there were challenges and we need to engage with the implementation. So the minister arranged a meeting on the 1st of December, and in the meeting, there were 13 issues that were put on the table by industry. And the minister established a task team to deal with this. And the minister also provided a guarantee that she would postpone the regulation, the implementation date from the 5th of November until the 5th of May, 2021. And to support that, she published in the Gazette, a notice in the Gazette on the 15th of January for allowing for this. Next slide, please. And during that period between December and May, the task team held several working sessions. There was huge cooperation between industry and government. And what then transpired is there was a draft amendment that was published on the 19th of March for comment. Now, the commenting period was closed on the 22nd of April 2021. You may proceed. And yeah, when the commenting period closed on 22nd of April, there was a number of submissions that we received. And maybe just by way of giving you a number, I received 1,738 individual submissions that came through an organization, but there were 1,738 emails that came on these regulations from individuals, if I can put it that way. But this is from a lobby group and social media, but it came to me and I had to deal with it. Apart from that, we had provincial input, we had National Treasury input, and from industry itself, there were 39 submissions from industry. And I think you would know some of those industries. So from the 22nd of April, we had to work around the clock to address the issues. We did have some consultation with some of the industry representatives to try and understand why they wanted certain changes and why we couldn't implement. And going through that process, we were fortunate to be able to still publish the final gazette on the 5th of May, which basically was within two weeks as such. Now, the amendment regulations that were published, there were quite a few differences that we put in, or changes, if I can put it that way. The first one is we separated responsibilities for producers that want to implement their own scheme and for PROs. You would recall from the first gazette, which was on the 5th of November, it only had responsibilities for producers. So that was a huge shift after being convinced by industry that we need to go this route. But we had done it nevertheless. Then we also included consequences for PROs in terms of accountability. And this is something that we had to do. If you want to have the power, you must have the responsibility and accountability for it. That was the thinking. And we did that. Next slide, please. And then what we also did, we made some cosmetic changes also. And the cosmetic changes were for the purpose of providing clarity. And wherever we've used the word product, we actually put it as identified product. When we talk about identified product, these are products that are identified in the separate notices that have also been gazetted. Now, we included, as I said, we made some of these changes as cosmetic just for the purposes of clarity. Now, we also made some changes to the free rider definition, and it says without fully complying with the requirements of an EPR scheme. You would recall from the original text, we basically said that the free rider, and at the end we said, who does not pay the fee. And I think the wording, this one is a little bit more diplomatic. So that's why we went for this one. We made the changes that were proposed by industry. Next slide, please. And then we also amended some of the definitions of the importer. And you can see that on the importer, we said it's not limited to the first person that places it onto the market for sale. And that was deliberate so that we don't have products coming into the market and nobody taking responsibility for it. Then on the producer, we also, where we've got refurbishment, refurbishment is not applicable to the paper and packaging sector, but it's very applicable to lighting, electrical and electronic sector. So we did the cosmetic change by saying we're applicable. Okay. Then the next one is we added a definition for collection because people had different views on what collection is. So we said, no, let's put it in. We put in the definition of collection, and it means the gathering of identified products at the end of the lives at the place of its generation or storage by a waste picker, collector, or reclaimer, or service provider. And we had to give the whole spectrum of who can collect these so that we don't leave out somebody and then they become an exclusion to these regulations. Next slide. Okay, then we also had an issue around net cost and full cost, and we then put in the definitions. These are new definitions, and as you can see, the definition of identified product is also included. All the green is the new and all the red is what we took out. But yeah, so you can see that these definitions have been included to provide clarity. Next slide, please. Okay, and then what we had done is we had taken out the definition of refurbishment from the regulations because it was creating a kind of challenge because it's not being used elsewhere. And we moved this from the regulations to the notices, to the applicable notices. So if you go to the amended lighting notice and the amended electrical and electronic sector notice, you would find the definition of refurbishment included in there, but it has been removed from the regulations. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, because you must recall that the regulations are written for all of the waste streams, not only for these particular three sectors that we have identified. It's applicable to waste oil, batteries, pesticides, textile, whatever, whichever sectors that we, as a department or as a government, decide to bring under EPR, it must cover all of them. So it's very possible that refurbishment might go back into the definition, but if it's applicable. Okay, thank you, Audrey. Next slide. Okay, then what we did is we've also extended some of the time frames and in terms of submitting reports. The audit report that is required by the department, we've extended the time frame to 60 days after finalization of the audit. If you look at the life cycle assessment, originally we said that the life cycle assessment must be implemented within 3 years. We have now extended that to 5 years of implementation of the EPR. So if we allowed that, because that's what industry put on the table, that to get competent people or expertise in life cycle assessment is limited in the country, and we agreed and we said, okay, it's fine. And then by engagement and negotiation, we arrived at the 5 years. Next slide, please. Okay, then what we did is because of the wide scope of the LCA, together with industry, we agreed on what is the minimum that we want to see in the life cycle assessment. And that minimum has been spelled out: minimization of material used in the identified product, design of the product to facilitate reuse, recycling, or recovery without compromising the functionality of the product, and reduction of the environmental toxicity of the resulting post-consumer waste stream. So these are some of the things that we wanted to be covered in the life cycle assessment, and as I said, within 5 years. So we've now put in the goalposts as such for life cycle assessment. This is what needs to be addressed, and this is what we need as a department to receive. Then on the transformation, this was quite a sore issue for us. As government, we want to see transformation in all sectors, in all levels. We know that currently it's a bit skewed, and we wanted to make sure that there's some sort of equality. So in terms of transformation and the BBBEE Charter, we have now placed the responsibility on the manufacturers, producers, or PROs together in consultation with the DTIC, which is currently the competent department handling these transformation charters. So these sectors that are affected, the manufacturers or PROs need to engage with DTIC and develop a transformation charter within 2 years of implementation of the scheme. So DTIC will assist, but industry will drive this process. Next slide, please. Then we've also introduced Regulation 5A, and these are obligations of a PRO that implements an EPR scheme. We introduced Regulation 5B, and this is for the obligations of a producer that implements its own scheme. And as I said right at the outset, we separated those responsibilities. So we have that. Then what we also did is in the list of products on the notices for the sector, we made mandatory, where we've got collection, we've said mandatory take back in the notices. So what we've done is basically, we have now prescribed which items or which identified products would have mandatory take back. We've listed that in the notices. The next one is on the environmental labeling. We've allowed the industry 3 years to align themselves with this and to reach consensus on how they're going to label their products so that it passes the information on to the consumer. It allows the consumer to make purchasing choices. So yeah, so we've allowed 3 years for that to happen. Then we've deleted a whole host of provisions in sub-regulation 1. And I'm not going to go through each one. I think you are able to read that in the regulations themselves. Next slide, please. Then under the obligations of a PRO, I'm not going to go through each one. I'll put in the slides so that when you get the slides, you can go through them. The main thing is I'm going to highlight is you need to develop and maintain a system to collect the EPR fee. Now, once you start collecting money, the governance around that and the accountability, transparency, and record keeping is key. So that's why we say they need to develop a system and maintain the system to ensure that people are not overcharged or, you know, the money is accounted for. Then we're also asking for financial audits biannual. We're also looking for external audits of these financial records. And then the next one is, in terms of submitting this report, it must be 60 days after the finalization of the audit. And it must be submitted to the department. That is the external annual audit. We also, if a PRO is putting up a system in place, must collect, record, and manage and submit data to the South African Waste Information System as required by Regulation 8 of the original regulation. Now, we are using the SAWS to gather the data or the information to enable us to see whether you've achieved the targets, met the targets or not for each sector. So if you look at the targets in the notices, you would see that there are various targets for collection, targets for recycling, targets for recycled content, mandatory take-back targets, etc. Now, we need a system to be able to record that and check and track. So that's why we're using the SAWS. Then the next one is, by agreement with the board of directors, you need to contract with the existing downstream value chain members before outsourcing. This was a key point also, and also a very sore area, because currently we have SMMEs operating in the different sectors, and we needed to protect them, and hence we put in this provision to say that those that are existing, you need to contract with them before outsourcing. That doesn't mean that whatever price that they look for you have to give. I think it's going to be by mutual benefit, because you can take it for, you can, I can say, I can promise you, if you do not use the downstream value chain service provider, existing service provider, he's going to complain to the department. And when the person complains to the department, we are then going to come back and say, okay, the regulations say you need to, contract with the existing downstream. Why didn't you contract? And then you're going to tell us the current price for polystyrene is 50 cents a kilo. And when we engage with this guy, with this service provider, he was adamant that he wants 1 rand a kilo, whereas the market value is this, and hence we ignored him. And he was not open to negotiation and was not willing to be paid the market-related price. Unless he comes up and say, globally, the market price is actually 1 rand 25 cents. The sector is actually being exploited here, and we are being paid a pittance, and hence, we refused it. So I think looking at all the factors, the department will then make a determination. Now, remember, you as a PRO will have to make sure that you have complied with the regulations within reason. And I'm saying within reason for a particular purpose. There may be provisions that are unreasonable currently that we are not aware of. And if it is such, if it's deemed or found to be unreasonable, then we have to make the necessary amendments. As I indicated early on, this is our first iteration of EPR implementation in South Africa. And we may not got it 100% correct, but we as a department, we are open, we are willing to learn, we are open to change, we are open to amend where necessary. If it can be demonstrated that we've made a mess and we need to correct, we will make that correction. The next thing is to also contract for collection and the various services through a fair and transparent process. If you would recall from the regulations of 5 November, we actually said it must go through a tender process, which is a government process, which was going to be frustrating with number one. Number two, we're not sure whether anything would have been done. Now, we have removed that burden at the request of the sector, of the industry. But that doesn't mean that now we can now start appointing our aunts and our uncles and our cousins and our friends in terms of work. You would have to demonstrate a fair process and a transparent process that has been followed. So yeah, you'll have to demonstrate that, and the department will look at it, because you know what happens. If somebody doesn't get a job, they're going to complain. And if they lodge a complaint as a department, we will have to look into it. So these are some of the things that you have to take into consideration. And we've been very flexible about this. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, then we also want you as a PRO to keep records of all of these things, and I've mentioned them already. The amount placed on the market, collected, sorted, recycled, and recovered. The next provision, which is cooperate with municipalities. The municipalities have a collection system. If you want to use their infrastructure, like a garden refuse site, to collect e-waste, then you need to engage with them. If you want them to collect your separation at source different bags, then you have to engage with them. We have just opened the door and said that legally it's permitted and you can engage. Now, this doesn't mean that you can ignore the municipalities and do your own thing. And if you don't meet your target, you can't come back complaining to say that municipalities did not want to agree or collaborate or cooperate with you. All that will have to be demonstrated. We are saying we have engaged, and we have also run this by SALGA, and COCTA. So they are aware of the provisions, and we have their support and backing. But remember, it must be a fair trade or a fair deal. It's a win-win situation for everybody. It can't only be one party benefiting and the other not benefiting. The next one is the integration of the informal waste collectors into the consumer value chain. We know, and I think some of you would argue, that waste pickers want to work from 5 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock in the morning and have the rest of the day off. You know, the waste pickers, you will argue that they want to work Monday, Wednesday, Friday only. Now, when we talk about integrating them, we're saying within that system, they need to be integrated. The last thing we want is to remove the livelihoods of any of these and make them a burden to the state. So they currently have a livelihood, they're sustaining themselves, and we would like to keep it that way. And then what is key is we're going to collect all this material. I hope there's no intention of buying a soccer field and stockpiling them in a soccer field. The intention is that it must be recycled. So the development and creation of secondary markets for this material is key. It's a critical component of the regulations and in terms of targets. So industry needs to look at that. Next slide, please. Okay, there are other obligations that are here, and this is regarding infrastructure. We're saying we are being flexible. We're saying that within 3 years, you need to do a feasibility study to see what infrastructure is in place and what is needed. And within 2 years of that, you need to make sure that it's in place. If you look at the infrastructure, if you want to establish a buyback center, and if there is currently some sort of transfer station that is within a municipality that you want to sublet and make it into a buyback center or whatever, I think we are promoting that from a perspective of trying to reduce any unnecessary additional costs. The next one is quite a sore one, and we had a lot of debate on this, and we reached a compromise. And this is compensation for the informal waste pickers. And I think many of you would agree that as a manufacturer, the regulations require the manufacturer to go and collect his material at the end of its life. The manufacturer, if he wants such a service, he would normally contract it out to somebody to collect it. And he would pay a fee for the service that is provided, not necessarily for the value of the material. Now, because of the economic situation we find ourselves in as a country, we know that the waste pickers are performing this function. And currently they get paid for the value of the material. And we know we've heard several complaints of exploitation and inconsistencies and, disparity in terms of how much you get paid in the city and how much you get paid in the rural area. And to avoid all of those issues, we have provided this provision that they would compensate waste pickers. Now, that compensation is separate from the value of the material. Now, the compensation, we said, must be in place by November 2022. That has been agreed to by industry and by the minister and all parties concerned. So there are some things that must still happen, like the national registration database, and there may be other criteria. If I register on the national database while working for the department, am I going to just be randomly paid X amount every month? Or do I have to start collecting 3 tons a month or whatever threshold? So I think those details still need to to be worked out. And I'm saying again, it's our first iteration. We are working towards getting it right. Next slide, please. Okay, then in terms of an EPR fee, which most manufacturers will be paying towards the PROs, we put in a few criteria here, what can be used. I'm not going to read them out and explain them. I think you would be able to read them for yourself. Next slide, please. Okay, the next one is on the EPR, the EPR fee. Originally, we said it must be displayed on every invoice and every cash register slip. And after some convincing by industry with the IT nightmare that may come into play, we then decided that, and we agreed that we would allow it to be displayed on the website of the producer or the PRO. And it must be the latest figure. It's a compliance issue. If you don't have the latest figure on there and you get caught, it's an offense. So please take note of that. Then we also have another provision, what we call an administration fee. And a lot of people were getting confused between the EPR fee and the administration fee. And we couldn't understand why they were getting confused. I'm not sure whether it was deliberate or what it was, but we took the time to explain it. And in the regulations, we have provided further clarity to say that the administration fee or the administration cost for an EPR scheme will be limited to the following. And we put in three criteria or three requirements: salaries, overhead costs, which is rent and utilities, and information technology and systems. So that's what we put in there, and that is limited because you would see later on the percentages. Yeah, there you can go to the next slide. It's fine. If you look at the percentage, we as government, we took a big knock, or we took a huge flack on why do we have such high percentages. You would recall in November, we basically said between 9 and 15%, or 9 and 12%, my apologies. And suddenly now we went up to between 12 and 20%. We even had criticism from Treasury to ask us why it was so high. And what we've done is we've provided provision that this can be reviewed after year 3. And based on the experience, the review will take place and then we'll be guided. Because I think unofficially, I'm told that the international best practice is around 12% or 9%. I can't remember, but it's something like that. But I think that's not a discussion for today. We've put it in, we have to deal with it, and based on experience, we will find it, because we will fine tune it, because we have put in provision for review. Next slide, please. Okay, the responsibilities of a PRO, it needs to submit a whole host of reports, and you can see that. I'm conscious of time, so can we move to the next slide, please? And the responsibility of a PRO, in terms of reporting, you would see the red ones is what we've deleted. After some engagement, we realized that if we want the audit to report against impacts to environment, that's not going to happen. You're not going to have sufficient time to quantify that. And then also recommendations in the event of non-compliance. We removed that because we found it a bit unfair also. And then also the status of free riders. We removed that because we also thought, hey, that was a bit unfair to ask you guys to do all of that work. That is, the free riders is government's job. We need to find them and we need to deal with that. So that's why we've removed it. We've amended these responsibilities. Next slide, please. Yeah, and maybe just to also indicate that we have put in a provision, and you would have seen in the previous slide, that the department may undertake verification audits. So if you tell us you collected 60,000 tons of material, we're going to come and check we collected 60,000 tons of material. If you tell us you are paying 3,000 waste pickers, we're going to verify with the IDs and physical verification. We don't want ghost waste pickers collecting money. So we will look at that. Okay, then the next one is we put in 4 criteria for the PRO. We try to keep it simple. The first one is they must be autonomous and must be established by a due process. The next one is it must be registered not-for-profit company. Next one, it must be managed by a board of directors with representatives from producers. And the last one must comply or adhere to the Companies Act in terms of good corporate governance and the management of conflicts of interest. We have already received complaints that people sitting on the PRO have private enterprises that are in the same waste stream. So, you know, it's going to be difficult, but you're going to have to be able to demonstrate that is not so. So these are the criteria that come with penalties. Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the the lighting notice, and I've given you the refurbishment and mandatory take back. My apologies. I think you can move to the next slide. Okay, and what we've done here is we've put in the what the scope of it, and in terms of the mandatory take back, we've included all the goods that are mandatory take back. It's basically all. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, then we panel beated the paper and packaging definition of producer. We have now included a threshold of 10 tons, and that was after, engagement with the sectors, with the affected sectors. And we've come up with the 10 tons, and we thought that would be reasonable because, as I said, we're implementing for the first time. We want to get some experience before we start bringing the smaller guys on board. Okay, and then, as I said, if you're a brand owner, you will be held responsible. If you are importing, you'll be held responsible. So those are some of the things that you need to go through. Next slide, please. Okay, and then the recycled content in the paper and packaging notice, we included that, what it means, we put a definition. Then we also amended some of the targets. You would see that the targets have been amended, especially for metal and some of the plastics. And then the glass products, you see that we broke them down to the further categories that they were presented to us at some stage. And then what we also did is to avoid double taxation, we have included an exclusion on the plastic carrier bags and plastic flat bag. So the carrier bags fall outside of EPR, and the levy that is currently being paid will be managed by Treasury, and it will not form part of the EPR, so that you don't have to pay a tax on it for the second time. Thank you. My apologies for going over time, but yeah, unfortunately, tried. But yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, over to you, Nombulelo.
Thank you very much. I think we'll give Audrey also an opportunity to do her presentation before we do the overall Q&A session, but I did note down most of the questions, so we'll be able to ask them at the end.
Thank you, Nombulelo. I will do that. Let's share the last presentation. I'm also going to try, that's back, thank you. I will also try my best to go through it quickly, but thank you, Anben, you are right. There is such a big, huge amount of information to share, and it's so important to get as much as possible across. So I think everybody really appreciates the fact that you did take the time to go through it in some detail. We've been living with it for quite some time, but not all our industries have done that, and I think it's really valuable. Thank you. So if we look at the Polystyrene Association in itself, the Polystyrene Association has been around for the last 10 years, and it's been a voluntary association, so we are very thankful for our members who have been taking part in this, these efforts voluntarily. What I'd like to run through today or talk through today is the versatility of polystyrene in South Africa as far as applications are concerned, secondary and primary and secondary markets, unpacking the PRO requirements as stipulated in the EPR regulations, unlocking the value of recycled polystyrene, enhancing existing collection systems, as mentioned by Mr. Pillay, and then establishing partnerships going forward. Also, the beneficiation is a really important part and crucial for us going forward, because if we can unlock the constraints to get to the material, we really believe that our secondary markets and uptake will really be there. And then developing an inclusive approach to compliance with the EPR regulations for our members and for the industry. First of all, for those of you who do not know, polystyrene is a plastic, number one. Number two, polystyrene is the plastic with the number 6 triangle in the polymer identification code. A brief overview so that you can see which products are included is all packaging, polystyrene packaging is included in our EPR plan. We have not omitted any products. So this includes seedling trays, which are the ones you find at your nursery. The see-through cups are often made from polystyrene. You can see it on your triangle. Protective packaging, a lot of that material also being imported into the country. Any food containers, meat trays, vegetable trays, the 6-pack yogurt tubs are also made from polystyrene, and then the polystyrene cup, but also the lid on top of the cup is also made from a high impact polystyrene. So these are things that are important to keep in mind. So what do we, why do we use polystyrene? And it's important to ask those questions because there are really properties in polystyrene as a packaging material, which is important for us to note. But we also need to note what are the weaknesses so that we do address those and still use the product responsibly, because that is our main focus. And that's, as the Polystyrene Association, we are really very committed to making this EPR plan work and supporting the legislation and working to adhere to everything. The strengths is, for those of you who don't know, physical properties, shock absorption, protection of packaging, and food packaging, because we obviously at the end of the day want to protect our food and not have food wastage. Thermal insulation, it's a lightweight product. It retains the vitamin C within your fruits and vegetables. It has a superior shelf life, comprehensive chemical resistance, good clarity, visual effects. It's cost effective. And the reason why we really aren't saying this is that if you look at the South African market, our large amount of our consumers, of our population, do want cost-effective solutions for packaging. And that is why we still believe polystyrene is an option. Or a good option. It does have a favorable LCA study, and I'm very relieved to say and happy to say that our first LCA study is being done by the CSIR at the moment and should be done within the next 2-3 months. And we're looking forward to sharing that information. Opportunities are significant. Opportunities are really in the secondary market, and I'm shortly going to show you all our beneficiation projects. Opportunities, and it's not really opportunity, it's like we have to do this. The EPR regulation mandates the recycling of polystyrene, and we are committed to that. Opportunities are to do a lot more education and awareness of the market. And South Africa, as I said, has got a large market for low-cost packaging or affordable packaging, and thereby we are not envisaging or don't want to put that extra strain on consumers as far as cost is concerned. If we look at some weaknesses, there is a high visibility in the environment. We see it. It is bulky. It shows everywhere. So we really have to make sure that our projects or our beneficiation projects address those issues when we look at the recycling of polystyrene. There is some legacy issues on the threat side for safety and misinformation about polystyrene, which we do also, it is mentioned in the EPR regulations that it's important for us to adhere to product stewardship commitments and make sure that the products that are produced in South Africa is of a very high standard. And just so that you know that our members and producers in South Africa do adhere to EU health and safety regulations. So we are very strict about that in our industry. We design for recycling, and it's important that you note that I'll show you just now is that yogurt tubs have been traditionally not been able to recycle because of the paper label. We have now got a solution where it can be recycled with a paper label, but if it was not, we would, have to address a label situation with a product because of it making it more difficult to recycle. And then there are some negative publicity around it. I think it's not really that, it's really misinformation or not getting the information. And this is where we have our work cut out for us to make sure that we do the education and awareness needed for the industry going forward. So if we look at our secondary markets already developed in South Africa, and this is exactly where the last 10 years have been spent, and we're very proud to say that we have really established good end markets or secondary markets in South Africa for polystyrene, and we do have a huge demand for material at this stage and will have for the next, for years to come. A project close to our heart is the bread tags for wheelchairs, and we do realize that this is such a small item, but we found that we have 600 volunteers across the country who collect that little bread tag. It's made from high impact polystyrene. Children bring it to school, and it really makes a difference in the life of anybody who is in need of a wheelchair. And we've handed out around 800 wheelchairs over the last 2 years. So there's definitely a demand, and we work closely with the Quadriplegic Association of South Africa, making sure that we do give the wheelchairs to people who really need them and who get the right wheelchair for their needs. Project Beads is a project where a lot of polystyrene that gets recycled, clean white polystyrene gets hammer milled into beads again, and it goes into bean bags or hot boxes. It's a cooking box. I'll tell you about it one day if you really want to know all about it. It's a brilliant product. I use one at home. And then Project Decor is really where there are factories in South Africa who used to, and I'll show you those examples now, used to use virgin material to make all their picture frames, cornices, skirtings, and curtain rods in South Africa from virgin polystyrene. They've converted over the last 5-6 years into using only recycled polystyrene from South Africa. Our newest our Project Build is the newest development. Well, it is about 6-7 years old, but it's a lightweight concrete block screed or cavity fill-in, which I'll show you now how that works. As you can see, a lot of all our projects really are cascading recycling strategies and not at the moment going back into food markets. So if you look at where is most of the polystyrene being recycled into in South Africa at the moment, 59% goes into the decor market. As I said, there are 4 companies or 4 factories in the country that do use the material. It is a growing market. There is a lot of demand for material. The growth, the most growth we see is over the last few years has been in the cement, lightweight cement market, which is at 23%. And we do see that this market has now grown immensely. The other markets are a little bit smaller, but what we have created over the last 10 years, and this is something that's really important, is that with the increase in the demand for the material, for the polystyrene now there's a demand for the material for end use or secondary market, the value of polystyrene has increased. Therefore, we are able to, and we don't fix prices, but it's a market-related price that's paid to any collector or waste management company or municipality or waste informal sector when they do collect the material. As you can see on the right, the COVID did have an impact on all of us. I don't have to explain that to anybody, but as you can see, there is growth in all these markets, and going forward, we really will illustrate to you that this is just growing as we go ahead. So I briefly touched on this just now, but just to explain to you that the polystyrene packaging or the Polystyrene Association really does not leave any item made from polystyrene for packaging, whether it's locally manufactured or imported out of our end markets or secondary markets. Therefore, we made this matrix, and we will send it through to everybody. But you will see that even your black food tray, meat tray, vegetables, confectionery, cold meats, takeaway, any item is used back into the decor market and into the lightweight cement market. Separation at source is key for us. So therefore, working with municipalities and waste management companies is really important for us to get the material as at least separated at source. We also don't want people to go and scratch in black bags to find the polystyrene, but encouraging them to have a 2-bag system. The lightweight cement product really is very flexible on the levels of contamination. So if you do still find some blood or food items, not food, but sauces in the product, it's really not a problem, and it can be recycled into the lightweight cement blocks without any problem. Even the yogurt tubs, as you'll see there, the 6-pack yogurt tubs can go into the lightweight concrete. This is a very new development for us, And we are very fortunate that our recyclers have been proactive and entrepreneurial in finding solutions where even those yogurt tubs with a paper label and some yogurt left inside is still recycled. And one of our members, Danon, is doing a lot of work in this arena, and we're very proud to work with them on that. So absolutely all polystyrene is included. We have take-back systems with a seedling tray, nurseries across the country, where when our members deliver seedling trays to the nurseries in rural areas or on farms, they come back with a used trays so that they can be recycled. Specifically, the clean ones will go into the decor market, but the soiled ones will go into the lightweight concrete. And this is also where our end markets and our secondary markets work together. And I think this is a wonderful thing, because our decor market will support the other buyers and vice versa, so that there's enough for everybody. We need to get to the material, and that's why we really ask for support from everybody on getting to this material. So let's get to the key requirements of the EPR regulations. Thank you, Mr. Pillay, for really spelling it out really nicely for us. I have tried to really capture some of the crucial points. There is obviously a lot more to be added, but these are the first kind of 6 steps that we have put ourselves to focusing on and getting done. And please remember that all of this must be done and in place before the 5th of November 2021. This gives us 6 months. So at the moment, our voluntary members are there paying for us to get this plan done and get a proper job done, so that come the 5th of November, we do have our ducks in a row, you could call it that. So what we'll do is determine a point of levy, definitely not having double payments, making sure that if the material is levied or if the polystyrene levy is paid at a raw material or at a converter level, it will not be double counted down the line for a brand owner or retailer. The levies will change after the 5th of November based on the targets that have been set. The influences of the cost of this levy, and this is why you need to join so that you can have input into the cost of this levy going forward, is the weight of the product. And as you know, polystyrene is a lightweight product. There is a demand for recycling, which we are very happy to have, but there is a cost of running a PRO, which will definitely adhere to that 20% in year 1 and escalating down to 12% over the next 5 years. On step 2, setting EPR targets. Our targets have been set, submitted to government, has been approved, and I'll show you what those are now as we move on in the slides. All the polystyrene packaging products are included, as I said, in our EPR plan, and mandatory take-back systems will definitely be introduced to all users of polystyrene. Life cycle analysis, as I said to you, as Mr. Pillay said, every 5 years we have to do that, but ours is underway at the moment. But we do want to point out that even though polystyrene is an awesome lightweighted product, we do not want to compromise the functionality of the packaging, because it must still be able to fulfill its purpose. And then designing for recycling with on-pack labeling systems will be done, will be in place. A lot has already been done, but this will get an extra emphasis over the next few months. We will also then develop programs, which is pilot projects, education awareness, infrastructure, job creation, end market developments, working very closely with municipalities and informal sector, and that those systems that are already in place. We obviously do not want to reinvent the wheel. We don't want to take money away from people or jobs away from them. We actually want to add. So also a highlight for us is the broad-based Black Economic Empowerment Transformation Charter, with our targets and our timelines to be reached within 2 years. I spoke about the administration costs, adhering to those regulations. And as you saw, our reporting and auditing and corporate governance is going to be quite cumbersome, but we want to do that as effectively and efficiently as possible. If we look at recycling in South Africa at the moment, we'd like to say business as usual, with no EPR regulation no free riders, coming on board. We will have a steady growth in the recycling targets or recycling rates going forward, but it's just not good enough, because what we have done is set ourselves really high targets. As you can see on that red line, that is the EPR polystyrene recycling targets that we have submitted to government voluntarily, saying these are the targets that we will reach, and we are committed to do so. If we know it is possible, the materials there, the infrastructure is there, the commitment is there, and the technology is there. We just need to now all work together to make that work. If we look at how the sustainable polystyrene value chain actually works, is that we've taken time to put this model together, because a lot of people talk about a closed loop recycling system. And yes, that is something that's been talked about a lot, and that is something that is something that worldwide everybody's working towards. And there is, as you can see on the left, technical and commercial constraints, and it's not currently viable in South Africa, but the technology does exist in Europe. It has been used. It is being used. We have looked at it in South Africa. We are able to do it in South Africa. But for that to happen, we will have to have better collection and collection services, where the material will be cleaner, we'll have the bigger volumes, etc. So what happens to the polystyrene? It goes into, the virgin polystyrene goes into packaging and non-packaging. All our manufacturers are using in-house recycling, where absolutely nothing goes to waste. So that's just good business practice. The polystyrene or the packaging will then go into the market. Some countries are using a lot of polystyrene going into energy recovery. It's not done at scale in South Africa yet, but it will definitely grow going forward. A lot of materials leaked into the environment, and a lot of it goes into landfill, which is exactly what we do not want. So our cascading recycling end markets is really our decor market and our concrete block market, being the biggest 80-20 principle. 80% of our end markets will be in those two markets. And the very important thing here is that in both those markets, there's a 0% loss, because everything gets used again. Even if a picture frame was cut a bit short and is not usable in the installation at a house or a cornice, it can go back into the system and be used to make a frame again. And the same for the lightweight cement blocks. And this is how we will now work forward, and going forward to making sure that there is also at a stage, not a yogurt tub to yogurt tub technology, which is already used in Europe. And that's something that we are looking at bringing into South Africa. So what have we done to address this issue, and how are we going to get to that 43% recycling rate? By implementing the polystyrene recycling strategy and EPR plan, we will be able to push our material from the various streams on the left-hand side. So therefore, a lot of our attention and work will be done in the collection of polystyrene, specifically from waste management companies, municipalities, any material recovery facilities, separation at source projects, waste collectors, reclaimers, waste pickers. We are already at our factories countrywide got these pickers and waste collectors and reclaimers coming in with bags of polystyrene, and we are buying it from them. Recyclers, any drop-off or collection points, garden sites the municipalities have, and then very innovative logistics, because polystyrene does have challenges when we recycle it. We have got technology in place where that's either baled or ingoted, so that the material is reduced in size and can then be transported. Or I'll show you now what our other plan is, and that is really the concrete block factories. And these factories, we've come up with a model where these factories will be put up across the country. There are already factories, but smaller satellite factories will be put up at different points. This year, we already have 3 we are planning, and I'll show you where they will be now. And our plan is that these factories, by having them exactly in a municipal area or close to the municipal collection points, we will make sure that there's a solution on the doorstep, and you don't have to travel with the polystyrene, but that the community and the whole geographical area can bring their polystyrene to these factories to be recycled and obviously be paid for. The concrete franchise model, as I said, is the smaller factories, and those will be spread throughout the country, and our dream is to have one at each municipal area. Our decor factories do exist, and with them goes machines that the industry has purchased, which I'll tell you about now too, and those machines are there to reduce the volume of the polystyrene so that it can be transported. And then we have a huge buyer's market for the bread tags for wheelchairs. The bread tags also, by the way, go into the decor market. So if we look specifically at the lightweight concrete block success story, I think a lot of you are not even aware of the extent of these products, and that has been used already in South Africa. Most of the products have been used in commercial and residential solutions, but really most of the volumes going into the commercial market. When I say residential, it means residence apartments blocks, student accommodation. There's a lot of student accommodation being done at the moment with these blocks. And then commercially, if you go to the V&A waterfront, the museum is built with these blocks, Trumpet Towers in Johannesburg, BMW Pavilion, the Zeitz Museum, Table Bay Mall, and the Gauteng Station has used these blocks in their building. So it is not a solution for a low-cost housing solution. It is a European highly advanced technical product that can be used in both applications, all applications, and with huge advantages when it's used. These blocks are SABS approved, NHBRC approved, and also Agreement certified in South Africa. We also have built, and there's a lot of emphasis on educational centers, schools, creches, etc., because these projects are just easy to build and quicker to build. The housing projects is also 150 homes in Mossel Bay, 800 homes in Vrede, 300 homes in Philippi, and 500 in Gauteng. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I really didn't have space to add all of them. If we look at the advantages of these lightweight concrete construction products, the benefits and business opportunities are across the board. Environmental, we're using post-consumer, post-industrial material, even if it is slightly contaminated. We will reduce waste into landfill. We will incorporate polystyrene into long-term solutions, thereby reducing the carbon footprint, where that house will stand and that building will stand for years to come. And if there is builder's rubble or the block did break on site, the polystyrene block or the lightweight blocks will be collected and can be used back into the making of a block. So you won't have the builder's rubble or yes, a lot of that going into landfill too. So for society, it's important for us to recover the waste out of societies, help small communities with infrastructure to get the polystyrene out of their communities, put the satellite factories up to create jobs in metro and rural areas, increase the demand for the polystyrene so that there is an economic benefit also for the community when they bring the polystyrene in for recycling. In the construction process, it's faster to build with these blocks. The cost is very similar to conventional blocks. It builds very similar to conventional blocks. There is some training needed. We will, our partners in this whole industry will do the training. It's a very similar brick and mortar kind of block system, so it's not new and it's not foreign to our labor force. There's less damage, as I said, on the building site. It's easy to cut. It's lightweight. We have a lot of ladies building with these blocks. It's an excellent dimensional stability. There's no shrinkage in your house, no cracking and no swelling. As I said, it's SABS approved and all the regulations have been met. It's got a 2-hour fire rating and well insulated. Your house will be cooler in summer and warmer in winter, and no damp because there's a water deterrent in the block. There you won't have mold or damp in your house. And then obviously you won't hear all your neighbors, especially that's why these blocks work well for the housing of students and flats or accommodation being built. It is also lighter to travel with, therefore helping with the transportation side. It reduces the use of electricity because it's warmer, it's the insulation properties of the product, and it reduces the demand on the health system and increases the use of waste collection from municipalities and private sector. And then if we look at our decor market, which has been in existence, as I said, for quite some time, if you look at the top left picture, this is where the polystyrene goes through a machine which really melts it at a very low temperature so that we can transport the polystyrene from the source to the factory where it is made into picture frames, cornices, skirtings, moldings, etc. So what happens is the local factories we have is in Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, Western Cape and Eastern Cape. These are all local companies. They do not import any polystyrene for recycling. They use local material. When we started 10 years ago, they were importing material. They don't anymore. These products are sold, the picture frames, etc., are sold through brand owners, retailers, and goes into the export market. And we're very proud of our producers in the country. There are commercial installations, but also housing in your house, all those installations of your curtain rods. If it's not wood, you must know it's made from recycled polystyrene in South Africa. The frames are distributed through most of the frame shops throughout the country. So if you look at that little triangle on a wall when you choose a picture frame, it is made from recycled polystyrene in South Africa. And then again, the properties or the points that we want to touch and that are really important in this decor market is environmentally, once again, utilizing post-consumer and post-industrial material, reducing waste to landfill. Polystyrene is once again incorporated into a long-term product. If your frame breaks, it can go back into the process to make another frame. For society, we will recover the waste and create a much needed waste collection infrastructure. We have all these satellite ingot machines, baling machines in place, and those are paid for by industry. So we put up businesses across the country to use this machine. We help them to get enough material for their machine, but we also have an end market for them to sell their products into. It's a world-class product, made right here in South Africa. It's easy to install. It's excellent in strength, does not chip, is waterproof. I'm sounding like a real salesman, but it really is a good product. What we also do is invest in South African manufacturing economy, creating jobs, investing in South Africa, exporting our products, and we can be proud of that. And then obviously also, by ingoting the material, we do help with the transportation and putting less natural resources into a product, but using recycled material. And this is to give you an idea of how many factories are actually in South Africa already. We have 45 buyers across the country, and they feed into these factories or into the lightweight cement factories, which there are 15 in the country, and the decor market, there's also 15 factories. And this is the factories where they actually make the product. So this is not the whole infrastructure that supports or feeds product into these factories. So we have already got a very good footprint, and we're proud of that. The problem here is, not the problem, but the challenge is to get enough material. And I think some of you are tired of me already saying, please, we need material. So please make sure that you do engage with us to get to as much material as possible, because the material's out there. We do have trucks and trailers on the road collecting from households through the separation at source programs, but we also have all these 30 then factories have their own trucks and trailers on the road to collect the polystyrene either in ingot form or baled. Now you need to join. Thank you very much. And for you to join at the moment, up until the 5th of November, the cost is 100 Rand per ton for product produced, sold through or made through converters, brand owners. And this includes primary and secondary packaging. And this includes if you do import into South Africa any product, which is an electronic product or any plug, any product that's used for protective packaging, a car part, you must join the Polystyrene Association because that secondary packaging that you import is also recycled in South Africa, and therefore you must also join. Our raw material suppliers don't have to, as far as the EPR regulations, be members paying, but they have been very good that they really want to support us, and they've given us some funds to support the work we do and development of this plan. The retailers and brand owners who don't have that tonnage figure yet, because we found that a lot of the retailers and brand owners and importers don't have those numbers yet. They are putting these systems in place. We're asking a nominal fee of 25,000 Rand a year so that we can start working on this plan and have it ready by the 5th of November, after which you would have and you must have your tonnages to declare and then be able to join under the per ton rate, which will be changed as far as the EPR regulations are concerned. Obviously, Mr. Pillay did give those points, and it's important for you to join, because if you don't discuss what you want to pay or what is feasible, then you're going to just have to pay what you have to pay at the end of the day. And then we have associate members. We really are very proud of working together with industry bodies, recyclers, waste management companies, municipalities, provincial government, and NGOs. And there we don't charge a membership fee. If we look at our roadmap going forward, Mr. Pillay has gone through all those first items. And we are planning to, by June, July, and August, have these 3 factories running. These are the additional new satellite factories. The one is in Atlantis, July at Drakenstein, and then in Durban in August. We are hoping to have those already working so that by the 5th of November, we do have a very good story to tell, and we have a solid base to start off with to reach those high recycling targets that we need to do. So if you do ask why you need to join now, it's to help us put up these 3 factories. And then I'd like to really thank our members. These are our current members. Who have, most of them have been with us for the last 10 years, and we look forward to you joining us in these endeavors. I'm stopping to share my screen now, and I'm going to hand over to Nombulelo, who's going to go through the questions and answers that you have asked. Just before that, Nombulelo, what I would like to ask everybody is, if you want any information, please put your contact details, additional information, put your contact details in the chat or email us. We will engage with you one-on-one. We will engage with your staff, with your customers to bring this message across, because we all have a huge education and awareness role to play in this process going forward. And I would like to thank you for your time. And Nombulelo, we have got people can leave as they need to, but I'm going to ask Mr. Pillay to maybe if we can ask him his questions first, so that he doesn't, if he has time constraints that he can leave, and then the rest of us can stay online. I've got time for quite a bit of time for people who do want to ask other questions, but yes, please, let's go ahead. I'm going to try, and I'm just going to unmute Anben. I've unmuted you.
Thank you, Audrey.
Thank you.
Thank you both for your presentations. I'd like to ask the first question. I think one of the questions that we've been getting a lot is, must life cycle assessment studies be done for all items in the packaging stream, or can one or two products be identified for the study? And I'd like to point that one to Anben.
It have to be for all products. That's why we allowed them 5 years.
And then I think for Audrey, what does the mandatory take back of products mean for the importers of appliances and car parts using polystyrene as a secondary packaging?
Maybe I should just, can I clarify that one?
Yes.
But what I'd like to ask is, the question is, and I think I mentioned it in my presentation, but I wanted to come out very clear, is that if you do import a product with polystyrene around it, are you obligated to join the PRO on your per ton that you import around your primary item, which be a fridge or an oven or a car part?
Anben, would you like to take that one for us, please?
Sorry, I didn't hear that again.
Oh dear. Okay, let me try again. If you do import any product into the country, like a fridge or a car part or anything with polystyrene around it as secondary packaging, and for that matter, the cardboard box, etc., do you have to join the PRO in question?
It's a very big yes, bold yes. Because if you're importing the stuff, remember the local manufacturers will be paying a levy.
Yes.
And if you're importing a fridge, the box, the polystyrene, who is going to fit the bill? It's going to be unfair on the local manufacturers. So in order for us to level the playing field, they would have to join and declare, and they would have to pay that levy. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think also, as a follow-up to that one of the questions that was coming up is, what in the case that if no brand owner or retailer logo appears on the packaging, who is the responsible producer of this product? For example, food trays and secondary packaging.
And I'm not sure why you need to have the brand name on the product itself. I think we're working from a perspective. Remember, this particular regulation, the majority part of it is self-regulatory. The fact that you're asking the question begs me to rethink. Did we make a mistake and trust industry to self-regulate, or do we have to reconsider?
No.
We basically on trust, and that is why if you are a manufacturer, you need to declare, you need to register, and you need to declare. If you're not a manufacturer, then it's fine. If you're within the threshold, you need to register, you need to declare, you need to pay the levies. If you don't do that and you are caught out, you are going to be in non-compliance, you'll be prosecuted with an offense. And I didn't go through the offense because it was in the 5th November. The offenses for this regulation, the first option is a maximum jail term of 15 years. The second option is the option of a fine. And the third one is both a jail term and a fine. I thought I'll just put that out there. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Just to also kind of jump on that part where you're talking about offenses, there's a question that came in where a person was asking, if as a producer we choose to join a PRO, we pay the EPR fee to the PRO. Should this PRO fail to comply with any of the regulations, are we liable as a producer, or is the PRO responsible?
Okay, that is why in my presentation, you would have noticed, I think it was most probably the second or third slide, where I did indicate that we have consequences for PROs. So if the PRO, let's say for argument's sake, it's Adri and polystyrene, and Adri does not meet the targets, and you as a manufacturer of polystyrene or an importer of polystyrene, you are registered with her. The mere fact that you are registered with her and Adri has agreed to take care of the polystyrene on your behalf, Adri takes the responsibility and accountability. So if Adri does not adhere to or meet the target, Adri would be taken to task. But that's on the basis, and you can demonstrate that you've paid your fee, you've done what you're supposed to in terms of your obligations to Adri or Polystyrene SA or vinyl loop, or whatever the name is. So I think we want to say that in a nutshell, yes, the responsibility can be transferred to a PRO, and there are consequences, which are the same, by the way, 15 years and the option of a fine. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think this one needs just a tad bit of clarification. The question was, if we purchase packaging material from a supplier, for example, plastic bottles, and put our products in those plastic bottles and put that out to our market, does that mean that our packaging supplier has a responsibility in our EPR, or is it that the responsibility solely lies with the brand owner?
Okay, this is where we've allowed a lot of flexibility in the regulations. And if you look at the definition in the paper and packaging, it's basically bringing this flexibility. We are saying, and let's say, number one, you are importing the bottle from outside of the country into South Africa. And you are now filling it with water and you are selling it. And you are selling it under your brand, whatever the name is. Because you're importing it and you are the only person here in South Africa that knows about this bottle, you as the brand owner will have to take responsibility for it and follow the regulations. Whether you join a PRO to collect your bottles or you do it yourself, that's your prerogative. Now, if you purchase bottles locally made in South Africa and you fill it with your product or water and you sell it, if the industry decides to levy the fee at the manufacturer stage, then the manufacturer takes responsibility for it. But that's the flexibility we've allowed industry. You decide where the fee will be levied. We have not prescribed where it must be. So if the fee is levied at the manufacturer, then the manufacturer is responsible. If the fee is levied at the brand owner, then the brand owner takes responsibility. I hope that clarifies that, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that clarifies it. And also one other question which I think is very important, is how do producers interact with local municipalities to prevent sorted waste from ending up in the same collection system, negating separation at source? Would the municipalities then need to join, be part of the EPR scheme?
In the regulations, we've basically opened the communication channel between producers, PROs, and the municipalities. We've provided for them to start engaging on this thing. Now, when I say we've provided for you to start engaging on this thing, the reason for that is basically we are saying that the municipality will provide a service which you as a producer must compensate them for adequately. That is a contractual agreement. It's got nothing to do with the department. The municipality does not need to join a PRO, etc. We only made this possible for the municipalities to actually start engaging producers to engage with the municipality. That's what we provided for. We are not getting involved in the contractual arrangement as such.
And I think I also have two more questions. One more is, do the informal collectors and recyclers have to kind of organize themselves when dealing with PROs? And how do you kind of foresee that contracting agreement taking place and shaping itself?
Okay, maybe the question is not clear, and maybe from my understanding, when you say they must organize themselves, remember the provision, we put in a specific provision in the regulation that say that the PRO or the producer must integrate. It doesn't say may, it says must integrate the informal collectors or the informal sector into the downstream value chain. Those are the exact words. I think I'm quoting them verbatim. But that is what is required of industry or the producers and PROs to do. Now, your question is, do they have to organize themselves? Maybe I'm not clear on that. I know I haven't answered the question, but maybe from that perspective, the person answering the question maybe can be given an opportunity to clarify what do they mean by that.
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea. So the person who asked the questions, Would you like to clarify if we haven't answered your question? But I'll move forward to the other question that I have for you. This is more kind of like a case study question, but this person said, the company that I work for is a food manufacturer who supplies a retailer. Will both these institutions be identified as brand owners? And will we, as the food manufacturer, need to join the relevant PROs of the materials we use? In our case, will we need to join all of the 7 PROs?
Okay, let's start again from Marie. I think the issue of where the fee is going to be levied is key. And the answer to this question is exactly the same. If the fee is levied at the food manufacturer, then the food manufacturer is responsible for it. Now, when you talk about the 7 PROs, if the food manufacturer is doing polystyrene, is doing plastic, is doing paper, is doing whatever other materials the 7 PROs are responsible for. If it's doing the all 7 products, I'm not sure why that question is actually being asked. Do they have to join the 7? Because if you are putting the material out there, somebody's got to pay for it. Somebody's got to take responsibility for it. So if you are putting out 7 products and you're only taking responsibility for 1, you are in non-compliance for the other 6, which means you are going to go to jail for a maximum of 15 years if found to be in non-compliance, and when prosecuted, you are found to be guilty, and that is the consequence. I hope I've answered that question, because I didn't understand the question also, because I thought it was clear from the previous answer.
And then I think one more question just came in for you, Anben, and this has to do with the life cycle assessment. I think this person's asking, who is responsible for undertaking the life cycle assessment? Is it the PROs, or whose hand is it in?
Once again, if you are a producer and you decide to run your own scheme, and your own scheme is related to polystyrene, the expectation is that you would do the life cycle assessment for polystyrene. If you decide to join a PRO like Vinyl Loop, then Vinyl Loop will do the life cycle assessment. Now, there's a bit of a gray area. And with polystyrene being a very specific product, and if you've got one guy that is doing life cycle assessment, or rather one guy decides to run his own scheme on polystyrene, and we heard from Adri that Vinyl Loop is doing the LCA now with CSIR. It really, government will not really say, you know what, we don't have a life cycle assessment for expanded polystyrene. I think that will really be unreasonable of us to expect the guy to do another life cycle assessment for the exact same product. I think that is what we would avoid. But unfortunately, we are unable to make everybody happy. We win some, we lose a lot. So I think that's just somewhere we have to just bite the bullet. It's going to be, you know, somebody's going to complain, I had to do it and he doesn't have to do it. So maybe if you guys can come to some compromise to say, you know what, I'm going to do it, let's meet halfway, or my market share is 25%, I take 75%. Can we negotiate and do this thing? Whatever computation you use, I think we don't have a challenge there. The most important thing is, if I use polystyrene, we want an LCA for polystyrene. I hope I've made myself clear. I know I may have contradicted the issue on the gray area, but that's unfortunately where we find ourselves. And I think everybody on this webinar right now would agree that it would really be ridiculous of us as government to request both people to do the same LCA. Thank you.
Thank you. I think whilst 2 or 3 of the other questions are coming in, Audrey has...
Yes, sorry. Thank you. I just want to add to that. But just to clarify, the Polystyrene Association will still only look after polystyrene, and they are the ones doing the LCA study at the moment. The Vinyl Loop Association that I'm also working with, because it's 2 very small associations or smaller volume products in the packaging industry, The vinyl loop is only for vinyls and PVC. So they are just starting out now and have not got that far yet. But the Polystyrene Association has got, this is what today's meeting was about. But thank you, Anben, because you are 100% right. I think all of us do really realize that these are responsibilities, and the legislation, really the regulations are very specific about certain things. But everybody, I think, has a bit of I need to double check this, because there is quite a strict penalty. So we want to make sure that we are on the right side of the law. Oh, someone has put themselves on. Okay, anyway, so I see, sorry, Nombulelo, did you see a raised hand? I think.
Yes, Susan's hand was raised. Susan is from the CSIR, and I think her hand was raised and she kind of put it down again. So we'll wait for her to raise her hand again, and she'll probably have something to add to us, since Audrey did say that the study for the LCA will be done by the CSIR. There we go. Her hand is raised again.
I've unmuted her.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted clarity from Anben. When you talk about polystyrene, it's actually a material and not a product, because there's a number of different products made from the same material. And when we do LCA studies, then it becomes important to know exactly what the product is that we have in hand, so that we know what to compare it with. And then thickness and size and all of that comes into play. The way the regulations is currently written, it seems like you need an LCA for every product on the market. And we would strongly recommend that you reconsider that, so that it's not a product, but a group of products for which we can do a LCSA. Because otherwise we are going to be doing LCAs for more than 5 years, and we will still not be covering everything that needs to be covered in terms of the regulations. So that's just the point that I wanted to raise and bring to your attention. Thank you very much.
If I may respond, Nombulelo.
Yes, please.
Yeah, just note that I'm actually traveling, so I hope it's not an interference, but it's fine. I'll still stick on because I can still chat. And I want to say firstly, thanks to Susan for that clarity on the material and product. I think that's something that we have to look at, and we don't know the details, but we will have to schedule some sort of session together with Susan to get more clarity, because I'm not a specialist on LCA. Into play is, if we have a product made from polystyrene or any material product, we don't know what the additives are and what the impacts are. So hence we had requested that each product, because sometimes there are additions to a material to give it certain durability or whatever property is required for that product. So I think we just need to work around that, but we will be open to such an amendment regarding classing product, but it's got to be the exact same material used for the different products. If there's a slight change, I don't think we're going to accept it, because it's going to have a negative impact on the performance of the product after it becomes waste. Its properties may hinder other processes which we want to avoid. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I think one more question before we let you go, since you are traveling. Someone just wanted to clarify. They said it is then clear, if you use polystyrene and plastic packaging and don't want to run your own scheme, you must then join 2 PROs, one for plastic and one for polystyrene packaging. Is that correct if the person puts it that way?
100% correct.
And then also in terms of, they're asking who will be charged in the company if the company is found to be non-compliant.
The company is non-compliant. Hey, me,
Yeah.
I will go straight for the managing director or the chairman of the board.
All All right, I'd like to thank and please excuse Anben since he is driving and we did run over time a bit, but we will stay on with Audrey. And thank you so much, Anben, for your presentation and also clarifying some of the questions. As we said before in the beginning, if you do have any other questions that he did not get to answer, please do send them through to us and we will liaise with the DEFF and be able to kind of get a response for you. So thank you so much, Anben, and we hope you travel safe.
Nombulelo?
Yes.
Nombulelo, sorry to interrupt and interject there. I can stay on because I'm just traveling. I can stay on maybe for another half an hour. I'd like to deal with as many queries as possible to make my tomorrow a little bit easier. The only challenge is I may be traveling through some network challenges. I don't think it's going to cut me off completely, but if I get lost, my apologies for that. But as I said, I'd like to deal with as many queries because I'm receiving a whole host of queries every day that's taking up my time. So if I can deal with it, yeah, it helps me. Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to, I think, point this one to Audrey. Someone asked, is all polystyrene recyclable? I think you also spoke about this. So they were asking, when sorting out at home, do they get put into the same bin as plastics? Because they find that what they call trolley panniers don't want to collect the polystyrene packaging because of its weight. So if you can maybe clarify that.
Yes, that is true. First answer is all polystyrene should be and must be put into your bags. Because not many people know about the recycling of polystyrene, what we do encourage is that if your specific area, drop-off site, collector, waste separation at source project does not include polystyrene, please let us know because we will then put them in contact with a buyer. And as often the problem is they don't have a buyer. So as soon as they have a buyer and a viable buyer at a good enough price, which they will now, then they will sell it and collect it and sort it. But the problem is not everybody knows that at the moment. And just on another question that Anben was answering is that it's not plastic or polystyrene. Polystyrene is a plastic, so it goes with all plastics. But if you manufacture 5 or 6 different plastic products, remember there are 7 different plastics and there are PROs for the different plastics. And the reason why is because plastics cannot be, because of the chemical differences in them, they cannot be recycled together. So there must be a stream that goes to PET, a stream that goes to HDLD, polypropylene, polystyrene. So yes, unfortunately, it is a bit of a nightmare out there. But it is something that we as an industry, as PROs, are working on to see that where can we find ways of commonalities and ways of working together so that we can lessen the burden. But right now, as Anben said, this is our first iteration. For now, this is what we all have to do. We will have to register. If you use this product, you'll have to register with paper, glass, cans, metals, and all the different plastics substrates. So it's not plastics versus polystyrene. It's like 3 or 4 under plastic. So that is why we need all these sessions and these questions, because there's a lot for us to take in. We have been going at this for quite some time. Government has been going with this for quite some time. So now this education process is going to take a lot of time, but I think, yeah, these engagements are awesome. So thank you. You can go ahead, Nombulelo. But I see Philemon has also got a question. I'll have to go and unmute him. But I'm going to stop talking. It's your show, Nombulelo. I'm talking too much. Bye.
No, but I see, I don't know if Anben has just, maybe he's experiencing some connection issues, because we do have a couple of questions for him. I think one of them you can probably answer, which has to do with, this person's asking if our packaging supplier will pay the EPR fee, should we as a brand owner still register on the DEFF website?
No. if you are registered with a PRO, whether you are a producer or a brand owner, your registration is done through the PRO. Then, yes, you will also register, but that is something that Anben must actually clarify. Oh, who else is on this call? Because I think there are actually other members of our PROs on the call. Mandy, I saw you. Are you still there? And I see that Shabir, are you still there? That I can, well, you can't tell me if you're there. Can I unmute Shabir and
Shabir
Mandy
was here, but I don't see him anymore.
anymore? Okay, Mandy, can I unmute you and you can help me with this one? If it's Mandy or Quentin, don't know who's there.
I'm here, Audrey. Sorry, can you say that again, please?
Oh, I think Anben is back. If you just unmute
He's
him.
calling me. Hold on, I need to unmute him.
Yes.
Alma, are you there? If I can find you.
He's at the end.
I'm looking for you. You are there. I found you. Thank you.
So if I can repeat the question has to do with, they were asking if I can find it quickly, if our packaging supplier will pay the EPR fees, should we as a brand owner still register on the DEFF website?
Yes, the registration is key for us, and the reason for that is it will assist us to do the reconciliation. If we are unable to do any reconciliation in terms of mass balance, we're going to find ourselves in a huge crisis, and we will not be able to really know that they are free riders. So that is why we're requesting them to register.
And I think what I just wanted to ask with that is that if we as the PRO registers all our members on behalf of them, is that also okay to make it easier for everybody just to make sure that their name is in there, or do you prefer everybody to register themselves?
Them to register for themselves. They have their own registration number.
Okay.
And when they have the registration number, when you are reporting tonnages, you can say you are reporting on behalf of all of these registration numbers or what have you.
Okay.
So that names and people are unable to identify one another to comply with competitions and act and what have you. So I think we would want everybody, because from our past experience with trying to implement a simpler EPR system, I think you are aware we did try in 2012 or around about there. We found ourselves in a very difficult situation where it was difficult for us to get information. So we don't want to be relying on a private party to give us information that we should be having, especially on brand owners and on EPR. We want to be able to access that information ourselves.
And then I think one more question has to do with where a person's asking where municipalities have established curbside recycling programs and are currently covering the cost of collection and sorting. How do PROs plan to assist municipalities to cover such costs? I think Audrey can answer that, or maybe Anben can also give some insight into that.
Okay, I think the way you've said it, it sounded wrong to me. When you talk about curbside collection, etc., that actually becomes the responsibility now of the PRO or the producer. So I don't think it's about the municipality helping the PRO helping the municipality. It's actually the other way around if you look at the regulation. So my thoughts or my take would be that if there is already a curbside collection system in place, if you're looking at eThekwini, they have a curbside collection. And maybe what would be an opportunity is for the PRO or the PROs that are involved with those specific waste streams that are being collected, that they engage and negotiate with the municipality of how they can compensate or how they can take over or whatever the thing is. we are not prescriptive on that. So I think we are leaving that flexibility to industry to resolve. But we've opened the door in terms of Kokta and Salga.
And then I think there's also a question in terms of what you're talking about about integrating the waste pickers into the formally integrating them. Somebody asked, what say will PROs have versus municipalities in the integration of waste pickers?
Sorry, I lost you there, Nombulelo.
Oh, I was saying there was a question in regards to the integration of waste pickers. The person was asking, what say will PROs have versus the municipalities in the integration of waste pickers?
Maybe if I can get an understanding, the context, the question is being asked, and specifically, why are they including the municipalities? I don't think there's any piece of legislation that requires the municipality to do anything for waste pickers. So maybe if I can get an understanding, why that, why the inclusion of waste municipalities relating to the integration of waste pickers? I don't understand that.
Nombulelo, who must I unmute?
Philemon,
Yes.
I still had a question.
Yes, but that specific question that Anwen was talking about now, who asked that? I think it was Ita.
They asked it a slightly bit earlier when Anben was doing his presentation. So I'm waiting for that person to just clarify for me.
Oh, it was Mandy. Mandy.
Mandy.
Yeah, I'm going to unmute Mandy now. Hold on, if I can find her. Sorry, guys, I'm going through so many names here. Where are you, Mandy? Oh my word. Can't find Mandy. Philemon, do you want to ask your question so long? Because I unmuted you and then I'm finding Mandy.
Yes, Adri. Actually, I asked, let me build upon the question that I asked that Anben attempted to answer. I asked about the organization of recyclers and informal pickers. How are they going to be taken care in terms of the EPR schemes? So I'm getting a lot of questions, this aspiring recyclers asking how are they going to benefit, or what help are they going to get from PROs or SAPRO? So do they need to join the PROs, and then how is that going to benefit them? That was my question.
Yeah, if I can quickly respond. I don't think we've put in any requirement for the waste pickers to join the PRO, if I hear you correctly. If that's what you are saying.
No, that's the question that they are asking. Yeah.
Sorry, I missed that.
I'm saying that's the question that they are asking. Yeah.
We have not prescribed that they must join a PRO anywhere in the regulations. What we've put in the regulations is for the producers and the PROs to integrate them into the system. That by no means means that they must join and pay any subscription fee or whatever. In terms of compensation for the waste pickers, the system must still be developed, but there was a commitment by industry to pay waste pickers by November 2022. And that would require them to register on a national database. I'm not sure if you were present during my presentation, but I did give a few indicators of what potentially could be included in the calculation or the computation as such. We are not sure as yet, but if the waste pickers join a PRO, there's an opportunity for them to fight the case or to make the system work or to give the input of what criteria should be included for waste pickers to get compensated. But that's purely up to the PRO, because remember, if you join the PRO, you have an opportunity to make your say in the PRO. If you're outside, then you only engage when there's official or formal engagement from the outside with the Waste Picker Association. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, clear. Thanks, Anben. Yeah.
Thank you. I think Mandy, then you can go ahead to kind of clarify your question and ask your question.
Thanks so much. Yeah, Anben, it was in connection. I'm sure you saw the uproar that happened recently in connection with Pick It Up launching the curbside collection program, and the waste pickers responding that they were not engaged with in any way and were being displaced. So that's why my question was, where will the decision making lie between the municipality and the PRO? Because a program was implemented without any discussion with existing PROs in place.
Okay, Mandy, I think we got to be very clear. If there are programs that are being implemented, those that are implementing will take responsibility for the program. Today we are talking about the EPR regulations. I think that was the brief I was given. If we're talking about the regulations, then let's stick to the regulation. And I think I've made it very clear when it comes to, as you said, curbside collection. The municipalities can do whatever they want to. They don't have a responsibility to do it. It's their own initiative that they're using in order to save their landfill space or to extend the life of the landfill space. Now, separation at source or whatever other project or method that you guys want to use or the industry feels they want to use to increase the collection rates and increase the diversion from landfill, then that has to be, you have to engage with municipalities to assist you or whichever way you want to take it. So I think on the recent uproar or the protest action, I can't comment on that, unfortunately.
No, thanks, Anben. I was more trying to understand. So, for example, in your earlier comment, you said that the responsibility for curbside collection now moves to the PRO. And so the PRO will be responsible. In a case like this, would the PRO be able to engage with the municipality, because obviously now the responsibility falls, to make those necessary changes?
Chair, I need your protection here, Chair. I think I never at any stage said that the responsibility for curbside collection rests with PROs. Chair, I am hoping that you are able to protect, because my response was, sorry?
I will protect you, Anben, no problem.
I never said that the responsibility is the PRO.
Sorry, man, but I wrote it down because it shocked me so much that I actually wrote it down. That's why I'm checking. So I'm glad you're confirming that it's not the responsibility of the PRO. Then I'm happy.
Ma'am, let me also add to that. Curbside collection, neither is it the responsibility of the municipality. If you select to have a separation at source or a curbside collection to improve your rates, because the outcry from industry has always been that there must be mandatory separation at source. If you choose to have something implemented, it's your prerogative as a PRO to include separation at source for whatever material within your program, and you can engage with the relevant municipality.
Thanks, Anben.
Yes, thank you, Anben. I don't have any more questions. I think you've answered all of them so far. I don't know if you have any other clarifications or any closing comments at this moment.
I think your reception is struggling, Anben. Unless you come online, we're going to thank you wholeheartedly for your going out of the way. Nombulelo, I think you can do a great thank you for me.
I think Anben is, I don't know if he's still online, if he's back, but if you can hear us, thank you very much for being available and being very willing to answer as many of the questions as possible and clarifying a lot of the regulations and the schemes and the little nitty-gritties that have to do with the EPR regulations. I'd also like to thank you for your presentation. And also, I'd also like to thank Audrey as well for her presentation. And I'd also like to reiterate that if there's any other questions and queries that we did not get to in the Q&A session, please do feel free to email either me or Audrey, and we'll be able to liaise with the department and get you the necessary answers that you need. And if at this time there isn't any more questions and there isn't any more queries that you need answered from our side, I'd like to thank everyone and wish you all a very great afternoon. And thank you for giving us 30 minutes over time, but I really appreciate it. And I hope that this has been insightful.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Anben. I hope that this has been insightful to everyone as well. Audrey, would you like to add anything?
No, I think that is about it. Thank you very much. And yes, I see there are some questions still being asked. So yes, you're right. If everybody can just direct them to us. This is not our last session. We'll have more. We are going to have more. The whole industry are having more. I will also, if you're interested, give you a list of all the PROs so that you can ask them specific questions, because I think it's quite important to know who everybody is at the moment. It changes. I'm sure there are others that we don't even know about, but for now we can share that with you. And thank you, Nombulelo, for your time and your effort, and for the nice way of handling the questions. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
If anybody wants to stay online to have another discussion, you are welcome to. I'm going to be here for a little while longer. I'm going to try and unmute everybody and put you back on camera, because sometimes while you're at it, you do want to handle it further. But yes, for those of you who want to leave, it's totally fine. Thank you.
I think also, I don't know if it's Susan or Susan, how to say it, but from the CSIR, she had a clarification where she said the current regulations put an obligation on PROs to engage with municipalities. And then she said, I think the same obligation should be put on municipalities to engage with PROs. Without this obligation, we might run into similar problems as with the city of Johannesburg. So I think that was a great comment to add in there as well.
That is a good point. Definitely. Thank you. If I can.
Right. I think also, as Audrey has said, anyone who wants to stay on, please feel free to stay on. She will unmute you and she'll also put the video on. But to everyone else, thank you so much for joining us. I'm also gonna go off now, but thank you for inviting me. It was really a very informative and fruitful conversation. So do have a great afternoon. Thank you, Audrey.
Thank you, Nombulelo. Thank you. All the best. Bye. For those of you who are left, I'm trying to unmute everybody quickly. I'm going to go next to your name and do an unmute. And you can just click on unmute, and then I'll go and I think you can do your own, what do you call it, videos. You can do that yourself. And then unmute yourself if you don't mind. I'm trying to quickly get to everybody on the list. Did it work for anybody yet?
Yes, now we are unmuted.
Okay. Oh, but if you unmute yourself, you'll have to be quiet. Okay, I'm assuming everybody who wanted to be unmuted is now. No, they're not. Hold on.
Audrey, thanks very much. And we'll see you another time. Thanks for the seminar.
Okay, there was that you, I think. Anybody else who still wants to say, oh my goodness, it just keeps on asking to unmute. Okay, so if you're leaving, leave, and the ones who are left, I'm going to unmute and I'm going to put your cameras on. You are able to put your own cameras on at this stage. So if your camera is on, I can go and unmute you. Then I can at least see where you are. Just put your cameras on, Henk. I'm going to try and unmute you now. Where are you? Okay, there's...
Audrey, I can unmute
Okay,
myself.
good.
I don't know, was Philemon at first with his hand up?
Yes, he was. Anybody else has their camera on? I'm not seeing anybody else. I can only see people. I can see Philemon, I can see Henk, I can see Neelan, I can see Tianis. Can you, yeah, that can work. Who else? Put your camera on, please, if you don't mind, then I can know that I need to unmute you. You, I'm going to unmute you now. Done. Just go and click on unmute. Hilton. I'm going, Hilton's good. Isabel, do you want to be there? Dylan, I'm going to do, Dylan's done. Guys, it's difficult for me to see. Valeska, I've unmuted you. Tapan, you are unmuted. Dylan, I've unmuted you. Isabella, let me just check you quickly. I found another way of doing it better. There you go. Charlene. There you go. Okay, I've got, for those of you who want to stay unmuted, you'll have to keep your camera. If you want to be talking, put your cameras on and I can sort it out. Can everybody see the videos now?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, let's go and see which questions we've got to chat about. Philemon, you were first and then Henk, thank you.
No, you know, Audrey, my question was based on the fact that, you know, I get a lot of questions from collectors. You know, they collect not necessarily polystyrene only, they collect plastic across all material types. So they always ask, who can I sell this material to and how much price am I going to get for it? And I'm battling to answer them. So I guess my question is a little bit maybe premature because we have not started working out on the plans to try to firm up the prices of this material. But these are the questions that I'm getting, and hence I was asking, they need help.
Yes.
So I don't know exactly how to respond to them. My response normally is that wait until it's clarified in terms of the prices, because the plans are not yet finalized. Probably the plans will give a guideline in terms of pricing and all those things. So I'm not sure whether I'm on the right track when I answer along those lines.
Thank you. Philemon, it's not 100% right, because as I mentioned, and maybe it's difficult, I didn't explain myself properly, but the thing is that because there is already a buyers and end markets for polystyrene in a lot of the areas, that communication between the buyer and the recycler and the people you are talking about, yes, there's a gap. And that is something that we are going to address much better as soon as we have our EPR plan, and that's one of our action points. But for now, I don't ever like to say to people, no, we can't help. What I do is, if you put them in contact with us, the first question we ask is, where are you? Do you have volumes? Send us pictures of what you have. And then what we do is we look at where they are. If they are in an area close by one of our recyclers or buyers, we put them in contact with each other. So that is where the Polystyrene Association and the work we've been doing over the last few years is a little bit different, because we play a facilitating role. We do our best with the resources we have to put buyers and sellers in contact with each other. If we do not have a buyer in that area, we then start actually proactively finding in that area, are there maybe 2 or 4 or 5 guys who want to work together to get to a bigger volume and then sell it to the buyer and put equipment in place to help them to get it done. So I know a lot of the guys might say, but I've just got a trolley, and then yes, we can send them to, for example, I see Hilton is on the line. Hilton's got the Envirolite factory in Athlone, and he has trolley guys and waste pickers coming to him on a daily basis because now they heard, oh, there's someone who will pay me for this bag. But everybody doesn't do that. So it's a huge ongoing education and awareness progress and program that we will actually never stop doing. But the short answer to your question is, please engage with us so that we can do our best to help people and maybe say, okay, we can help you now, or no, not now, give us a time, and we keep them on our database, and then we engage with them as soon as there is an answer in their area.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, it does.
I think what might help is we develop something for you that I can just send to you and you can send out to make your life easier, because I'm assuming you get a lot of phone calls, not only about polystyrene, but each and every other plastic.
Yeah,
so, yes. So hopefully, would that help you?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Neelan.
The apologies, I need to run, but I stayed on specifically longer than perhaps I might have been able to say thank you very much to you in particular. I thought you did a great job, and I believe Anben also did an equally good job in providing clarity on a number of issues, which paves the way for us to do the right thing going forward in terms of EPR. So thank you very much, and unfortunately, I now have to leave.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. We'll talk soon. Thanks, Neelan.
Thanks, Audrey.
Bye.
Thanks, Neelan.
Okay, I'll have to go as well. Thank you, Audrey.
Bye, Philemon. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks, Audrey. Thanks for your time.
Oh, pleasure. Thanks, Dennis. I don't even know exactly where you're from. I'm sure I know you, but I can't remember now.
St. Cobain.
Oh, hello. Are you joining? I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Why are you blushing?
Oh, I'm because I want money.
You want money. I know you want money.
I need help. I need help.
Yeah, but I remember I'm already a member of EPSA.
Yeah, but you no, Mike is going to kill me.
Yeah, I know.
No, Mike and I will have a conversation. Don't worry, because Mike's not recycling anything. This is about EPR. This is not about safety and fire ratings in a building. This is EPR. It's very different. Anyway, we'll talk when the time is right. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll talk. I'll come and see you in Joburg, because there's a few questions that are.
Okay, but I'm not. I'm in Cape Town.
Are you in Cape Town? I'm in Cape Town at the moment as well.
Oh, cool. Okay, give me a call.
I'll give you a shot. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Henk. Sorry.
Audrey, no, I think I also need to go now. But my comment was more, on admin. I can see a big admin nightmare, because if I look at our portfolio, we have some of our packaging suppliers that will obviously register and pay the EPRs on our behalf. But then there's the others that will not do that. And I can just see a administration nightmare, because you register for some, you don't register for the others. You need to make sure that you pay the EPRs and you don't for some others. So for me, it's going to create a mess. So I think we should do another session. If I can ask if you can arrange another session where we go through the registration online.
Yes.
Just with somebody from the department there to assist and see to make sure that we do register, because I haven't been on the website myself, but normally these things sound sounds simple, but it's normally not. It's normally, quite complicated, and you need to tick the right boxes, because at the end of the day, you might tick boxes and then you end up being registered as a EPR and not a brand owner or something like that. And then,
you just sound like a child.
Yeah, so I don't want I like my GM. I don't want him to go to jail unnecessarily. So
I'm voting for you.
But yeah, this is just what I wanted to ask and see if there's a way for you to organize something like that, practical, just a rundown of the registration. And thank you. I think a lot of the questions was answered. So there is the flexibility that either the brand owner or the producer of the specific packaging can pay the EPR fees on the brand owner's behalf at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could just foresee a massive administration hiccup. But okay, we will be in touch soon. I need to run.
Yeah. What we'll also do, just Henk, is that that is why we have these 6 months, and that is why it's important for you to now be part of this process to iron out all these nightmares and hiccups and potential pitfalls. So that's exactly what the idea is. Okay.
Well, perfect. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Bye. Bye. I can't see hands. Does anybody want to put a hand? Hi, you.
Hi, Audrey.
Hi.
Okay. Thanks very much. Fantastic, very good, excellent. Your responses and Ben. And just to go back, I also made a note when Anben was talking. Municipality is providing a collection service to the PROs. He seemed to backtrack or just explain a little bit more about that. And it was great that that Mandy then was able to clarify.
Yes. Look, I'm going to be very honest with you, as that these forums should not be used to ask those very detailed questions like that to government. It's really not, because you could see he got his back up straight away. It's very important for them to save face. So it's important for us to rather have a conversation with them, and they'll be open with us to do that. And that's what I was afraid of, is a question like this, because I know how they react. It's not, it's just not how government works. And we'll have to all be very cognizant of how we work with them in future. And I'm not saying anybody is wrong or whatever. I'm just saying that is what I've picked up in engagements with them. So I would love to take that question further, and there are those particular questions. And I think what we need to do, obviously, is those difficult questions, go and sit with them and do it in a very amicable way. So if you want to jot down, and we'll take it to Packaging SA and do it through the right kind of channels, that is the best way to handle it with them. Otherwise, you don't get anywhere.
Well, what is surprising for me is the the sort of the backwardness of SALGA and the municipalities to come forward. I don't know, how.
They don't know what to do either. Like, we don't know, they don't know. So
it is all new territory, sure. But I mean, there's such a lot of material that either gets picked off the landfills or thankfully is diverted to be clean and higher value.
Yeah.
Which is, and there's a lot of focus on the waste pickers who do an excellent job, but that whole nexus is quite, it needs to be addressed. I suppose it will simply come out once the whole producer participation and all of that gets sorted out. Then the next step will be, okay, let's engage with the municipalities, because the other issue about engaging with the municipalities is, well, which one? Will it be, will it be polystyrene, or will it be Petco, or who's going to, and will it be the first movers from the municipalities? I mean, you mentioned Drakenstein, where maybe they will be connecting with you first, and you've got a whole nice thing going with them. Then suddenly there's Petco and Fiber Circle, and it's so that whole nexus needs to be taken on. But who is responsible? Is it Selga?
No, what we've done is we have started with conversations with In Packaging SA. So within Packaging SA and between the PROs, we've started identifying specific things that will have to be addressed from an overarching point of view.
Right.
And on Friday, the Packaging SA board has a meeting where exactly this is going to be discussed. Are they haven't, nobody has put their hand up for that, but the question is, okay, who's going to do it? So we totally aware of it. But this is something that Packaging SA board must decide. Is it something they want to take on? How they're going to take it on? How is it going to look forward? Yeah, so it is being addressed. But if I don't, maybe we don't even know if somebody in Timbuktu who's got a lot of money and is doing an overarching thing. I don't know. You know, the thing is that we do have a history of voluntary PROs. We don't want to just leave it by the wayside. We do want it to continue, but going forward, maybe in 5 or how many ever years' time, there will be a single EPR scheme and the PROs will be implementers, but there's a single body.
Yes, yes.
And that will help the brand owners also with 7 streams to pay.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yes, it is being discussed.
So that's how, that's how it went into Europe, and it seems to how it's gone to Australia as well. There is an overall alliance which makes the administration and the participation of all of the parties much simpler. Okay, thanks, Audrey. Thanks very much for the session. Very, very interesting. Very useful. Thanks.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Good.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, Hilton. You want to say? Ask to unmute. Mute.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks, Audrey. Very interesting. I
had to look smart for the meeting.
You didn't even put your camera on. Bye.
Yeah, I think just like I said in the meeting.
Yes. I must find that woman.
Eh?
I want to find that woman.
Yeah, no, Lisa already sent it to me.
Oh, did she?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay, I'll ask her.
I've already sent her an email, so that's fine.
Oh, awesome. I want to take pictures quickly of the whole chat so that I can go back to it and see what I missed. Okay, you can talk. I'm going to do that. Yeah, I don't know with those people. Yeah. Please,
I just wanted to say thanks very much to Audrey.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
It was awesome. It was very informative, and I definitely learned a lot from it.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, we all appreciate the effort you guys go through on that side.
Oh, thanks, Dylan. You're so sweet. Thank you.
It's important work, and we really do appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate you too. What would I do without you guys? Eh?
Thanks, Audrey. Chat you later.
Pleasure. Thanks, Dylan.
Bye.
Bye. Hilton. I don't know. There's 2 more people here, which I don't know who they are.
Isn't this Neeland?
No, it's Chapang, and no, it's a consulting company. I don't know who they are. I want to. But
okay. All right. I must go, Audrey. I'll chat. I'll chat to you soon.
Okay, great.
There was obviously some concerns. But I'll chat to you about it.
Okay, please do. Okay, awesome.
But yeah, I think on a whole it was very good.
Yeah, it's a story, but yeah, thank you. It took a long time to get here. Thanks, Hilton.
Chat soon. Cheers.
Okay,
Bye.
chat soon. Bye. I'm assuming there's nobody else. So I'm leaving.